My name is Joel Beinin. I'm Director of Middle East Studies and Professor of History at the American University in Cairo and Professor of Middle East History at Stanford University on leave. I've been engaged in the Middle East since I was 16 years old. I first went to Israel for 6 months as a member of a group of young people trained to be leaders in the Zionist youth movement. We spent 6 months on a kibbutz. I had, at that point, 12 years of Hebrew school, so I began to study Arabic since the kibbutz movement that we were affiliated with was a moderate Zionist organization and believed in Arab-Jewish coexistence, so they didn't have any problem with teaching me Arabic. My first Arabic teacher was an Iraqi Jew who had left Iraq when most of the Jews were forced out of Iraq in 1950-51. Came to this kibbutz as a member of a youth aliyah group and was the only member of the group who stayed on at the kibbutz, taught Arabic in the kibbutz high school, was very well known, very beloved, passed away not too long ago. And I've been studying Arabic and engaged in the Arab-Israeli conflict ever since.
Let's start then with the reinvigoration of the so-called peace process. The Bush administration, after starting, it seems, paying very little attention to this conflict, taking what's been reported as a hands-off approach to this conflict, is now apparently trying to put more energy into restarting negotiations for some kind of final peace settlement. How would you describe those processes, and should we take them seriously?
Fundamentally, this is a charade. I think that's the most basic thing that we need to understand about it. We are heading into an election year. The Bush administration is ideologically committed to full force support of Israel, more than any American administration since World War II has been. Bush's administration is certainly not going to do anything that looks like or can be interpreted as pressure on Israel going into an election year. They're already likely to lose big in the Congress and probably the presidency as well. They need to stop the damage rather than create reason for more damage. So I think what is happening here is largely an effort to make it look like the administration's Middle East policy is not a total catastrophe, which it is. Afghanistan does not look very good these days. Iraq, of course, is the biggest foreign policy debacle of the 20th century, if not longer. And I think one could make a similar argument that the hands-off approach to the Palestine-Israeli conflict since the Bush administration came into office basically unleashed Ariel Sharon on the Palestinians and has resulted in a ratcheting up of what was already pretty intense pressure on the Palestinian people in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. At this point, living standards in both territories, but especially in the Gaza Strip, are absolutely horrendous. So what the talks are primarily about now are marginal palliative issues. How many roadblocks may be removed? Will the Israelis release the tax monies that they purportedly collect on behalf of the Palestinians but have frozen since the Hamas government came into office? How many of the perhaps 10,000 political prisoners that Israel has will be released? Will Israel stop its campaign of targeted assassinations? The talks that are scheduled don't deal directly with the questions that have to be settled if there's going to be any permanent, stable resolution to the conflict. What are going to be the borders of a Palestinian state? What are exactly going to be the terms of sovereignty of such a state? Will it control its borders with Jordan and Egypt? What will be the fate of the settlers and the settlements? How many of them are going to remain, and what territory is or isn't going to be annexed to Israel? Water rights, Jerusalem, the rights of refugees, which of course is a huge hot-button issue for both sides. What the Bush administration hopes, insofar as it has any realistic hope at all, is that it can pressure Abu Mazen, Palestinian president, who at this point isn't particularly popular in his own community, just as Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert is not particularly popular in Israel. Bush administration hopes to pressure Abu Mazen into accepting what was called in the pretty much defunct roadmap a Palestinian state with provisional borders. This is a nightmare, because what that will mean is that Israel will effectively annex whatever it wants to annex, probably somewhere around 10 to 15% of the West Bank, plus exerting control over the Jordan River Valley, which would leave you with 3 or 4 isolated cantons inside the West Bank, enough territory so that it might look like a state, but broken up enough by Israeli settlements, settlement roads, the separation barrier, and so on, so that there would be no effective sovereignty of any sort. The Palestinians know that this is what Israel and the United States would like them to accept. They don't want to accept it, but Abu Mazen and his close associates, people like Nabil Sha'ath, Saeb Erekat, they may at some point come to feel that we have no choice but to agree to this, because there is nothing better on offer, and there is nothing better on offer, and there is very little likelihood into the foreseeable future, even assuming that a Democratic Congress and a Democratic president after 2008, that the Palestinians will get anything that looks more like a sovereign state than that.
Well, if that's the case, and even if Abu Mazen and the current Palestinian Authority government choose to accept some form of this attenuated Palestinian state, what are the prospects that they would succeed in carrying along the rest of the Palestinian communities? I speak, of course, of the other political aggregations, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and the others, but more broadly speaking, the Palestinian people in the West Bank and Gaza.
I don't think such a solution could win the support of a very large number of people, certainly not of Hamas and Islamic Jihad, but also the broad center of Palestinian public opinion, which amazingly still supports two-state solution, Palestinian state in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, with minor border adjustments and a capital in East Jerusalem. I mean, that is still the majority position. And it's actually, in a certain format, a majority position among Israeli Jews as well, or at least among Israeli citizens, if you count the 20% of them or so who are Palestinian Arabs.